When I was 4 years old, my mother put myself and my two triplet brothers in front of an auditorium full of high school seniors, and she looked at us and said, "You're going to tell your story, good luck." And she walked away. That's a little bit of an exaggeration, but essentially she wanted us to talk about ourselves, to talk about our experience as kids with cerebral palsy so that we could learn how to tell our story before someone tried to tell it for us, which is often what happens with disabled kids. Both my mom and my fraternal triplet brother have since died, but that experience not only changed the trajectory of my life in many ways, but it informs my values, it informs my work, my praxis, and it taught me something fundamental, that when we center people who are affected by inequities, to tell our own stories, to be the authors of the solutions to our problems, we can be successful. So my name is Dom Kelly. I founded and lead an organization called New Disabled South. We do disability rights and justice work in 14 states across the US South. And I have a thesis. I'd love to scream this from the rooftops. The future of social movements and the future of our ability to achieve health equity depends on everyone learning from disabled people and from the principles of disability justice that our community has developed. So we know that strong social and political movements are the reasons why we've been able to tackle so many of the social determinants of health. I believe that everyone working in health equity can learn from disabled people, from our varied experiences, from our intersecting identities, from the ways that systems impact our lives, so that we can achieve our collective goals. And I'll say that disabled people have predicted a lot of things that have happened. Disabled people predicted the worst outcomes of COVID-19. Disabled people have warned for many years that what governments do to us will eventually happen to others. We shouted loudly for many years about our crumbling healthcare systems and the influences that money have over the humanity of the people. And thankfully, more and more people are starting to wake up to that reality today. So I think a lot about how our community shows up in some of the hardest moments and the biggest fights, and how all of us can learn from disabled people about how we survive really difficult times. I think about organizers in the city where I live, Atlanta, Georgia, who organized for months and months to stop the construction of a militarized police training facility that destroyed hundreds of acres of forestry to build a mock city that essentially would bring in weapons and train police on how to harm people instead of build safety and care for each other. It directly impacted Black disabled people. It directly impacted our community, who are 2 to 4 times more likely to die in weather emergencies by tearing down protected forestry. It directly impacts the Black disabled men who are 2 times more likely to be incarcerated by the time they're 28 years old and face the impacts of police violence. I think about how disabled people build information ecosystems, that we are strong advocates for plain language, for how we talk about issues in a way that anybody can understand. I think about how we've been able to counter misinformation, how we can democratize knowledge through plain language. And in my organization, how plain language and our ability to message in plain language was responsible for us increasing at-home care waivers for disabled people in the state of Georgia, which lessened disabled people being institutionalized instead of being in their own communities. Disabled people have been the authors of our strategies to survive for so long, and all of us can learn. And these lessons are global. I'm thinking about our time in Rwanda and how community health workers showed us that connecting those who are most impacted in the most rural areas demonstrates that community care is critical to achieving health equity. I think about disabled people in other parts of the world, like in the UK, where disabled people are leading the charge of resisting further austerity, where in the global south, disabled people are defending care networks, just mutual aid networks to help each other deliver care, where they're actually reimagining what mutual aid can look like to work around systems that limit their ability to receive health care, to receive an income, that take away their benefits just because they make a little bit extra money than the law says that they can. I think about the principle of disability justice interdependence, and how disabled people have modeled for so long how helping each other is how we achieve liberation. So if we want true health equity, we have to stop treating disabled people like an afterthought and actually start treating disability justice as a blueprint for health equity. So I want all of us to think about the kind of world that we want to build. And I'm actually going to invite everybody to close your eyes, if you can, and to just imagine the world. Imagine the world in 10 years, 25 years, 50, 100 years, 250, 500 years, generations ahead of us. I think about my teachers, like Norma Wong, Mia Birdsong, who teach us about the long generational arc of this work, and how imagining a better world is how we achieve it. And as you close your eyes and think about that world, what does it feel like? What does it feel like to see your children and their children and generations ahead thriving? What do they have? What does it feel like to be a part of building that future right now? What does that feel like? And if you want to open your eyes, you can, or you can keep them closed. But I'll leave you with this, that disabled people have long imagined a better world. Disabled people who were thrown into institutions from the moment that they were born have imagined a world where they can be free. So my invitation to you is that, will you build it with us? Thank you.